While the world sleeps, the skies over the Middle East were just torn apart by the arrival of the most expensive ghosts on Earth. A lightning-fast military redeployment from the Caribbean across the Atlantic is pushing Iran onto the edge of a knife like never before. This isn't a routine drill. It's the final move in President Donald Trump's high-stakes nuclear endgame. Civilian flight data recently exposed a group of F-35A stealth fighters leaving Puerto Rico, making a secret stop in the Azores before heading east. These sky assassins belong to the Vermont Air National Guard, the same unit that just finished a pressure mission in Venezuela. In Washington, Defense Secretary Peter Hegseth just issued a chilling warning. The Pentagon is ready to pull the trigger at any moment. The scenario is no longer a bluff. Plans for surgical strikes on critical nuclear facilities are sitting directly on Trump's desk. Iran isn't sitting idle. They've just activated 1,000 strategic drones and turned subway tunnels into massive underground fortresses. The arrival of the USS Abraham Lincoln and its electronic killers, the EA-18G Growlers, has established an invisible no-fly zone. These Growlers have one job: to blind Iran's entire air defense radar network before the first bomb even touches the ground. In Jordan, F-15 Strike Eagles have already taken their positions, ready to provide heavy cover for the infiltrating stealth squadrons. The U.S. has even deployed HC-130J rescue teams, a clear sign they are bracing for high-intensity combat and the risk of downed pilots. Mediators like Qatar and Saudi Arabia are scrambling to de-escalate, but the roar of jet engines is drowning out the calls for peace. On this Middle Eastern chessboard, there is no room for the slightest mistake now that all American power pieces have converged. But will the F-35s muscle be enough to cow a Tehran prepared for the worst, or is this the start of a war with no end? The secret behind the F-35 as lethality isn't just the stealth paint, it's the ability to achieve digital invisibility within Iran's dense radar net. Remember Operation Midnight Hammer in 2025? F-35 as kicked the door open for B-2 Spirits to pound Fordow and Natanz. Today, that nightmare is being scaled up as Iran's entire command infrastructure falls into the crosshairs of the U.S. Air Force. Unlike previous administrations, Trump is holding a surgical target list that maps out every square meter of Tehran's high-value assets. Beyond nuclear sites, high-ranking security officials in Tehran now live under the shadow of sudden, precise strikes from the sky. In the Persian Gulf, the U.S. Carrier Strike Group isn't just there for show. It's the brain of a massive, unified sensor network. Each F-35A now acts as a flying data center, relaying real-time targeting coordinates to missile ships lurking below. In retaliation, Iran claims to have converted underground parking lots into ballistic missile bays, ready to unleash a rain of fire. This is no longer a traditional dogfight. It is a war of algorithms and cutting-edge electronic jammer dominance. Data from the war zone shows EA-18G electronic warfare aircraft have already begun their journey from Spain toward the combat zone. When these Growlers arrive, the enemy's entire communication system can be paralyzed in a matter of seconds. Israel and Saudi Arabia are also in back-channel talks with Washington to ensure no intelligence gaps remain. However, cornering Iran could trigger a chain reaction that collapses the global energy economy overnight. The Strait of Hormuz, the world's oil artery, is the death trap Iran is prepared to shut if the first bomb falls. Washington knows the risk, but they have placed their strongest cards on the table to force Tehran into one choice: submit or face destruction. The haunting silence from U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, is the clearest indicator that a real operational plan is now in motion. While Arab nations like Egypt and Oman toil at the negotiating table, F-35s have already completed mid-air refueling for combat. The U.S. isn't just preparing for a strike, they are preparing to reset the Middle Eastern power balance with absolute air supremacy. Iran knows their S-300 and domestic air defense systems face an ultimate test against the stealth and Growler jamming teams. Tehran is betting on asymmetric tactics, using thousands of cheap drones to overwhelm the U.S.'s incredibly expensive defense shield. But with the F-15 Strike Eagles at the ready in Jordan, the U.S. has built a steel curtain to protect forward bases from any counterpunch. Military experts say Washington has created a no-win situation for Iran. They can't win a conventional war, but can't retreat without losing face. The clock is the key. Will Trump press the button before the final diplomatic channels in Saudi Arabia completely collapse? Every eye is now fixed on the slightest movement at Al Udeid Air Base and the carrier groups hugging the coastline. One single accident in the Strait of Hormuz could be the spark that ignites a total conflict no one can control. The F-35s that left Puerto Rico aren't just a troop rotation, they're a message of steel sent to anyone challenging U.S. dominance. This is a game of cold heads and hot weapons, where the line between deterrence and destruction is as thin as a thread. Regardless of the outcome, the face of the Middle East will never be the same after this historic military deployment. The cards are on the table, the stealth squadrons are in position, and the world is holding its breath for the final bell. The question is no longer will there be war, but who will be left standing after the firestorm that is coming.